Hey everybody, I want to talk about a product and platform that I absolutely love and our latest sponsor, Interseller, the prospecting and outreach platform of choice for recruiters and sellers. Whether you're doubling down on business development or recruiting talent, Interseller does all the heavy lifting of finding contact data, automating the email and follow-up process, and syncs all that rich data into 20 plus CRM and ATS platforms. Reach out now and get going on a 2-week free trial and let them know you heard about it from Adam on the podcast today. Check out the link on the website. Appreciate it.
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast where I bring you the best and the brightest from the world of business, marketing, and tequila to help you harness your own inner tenacity and drive your career forward. My guest today on the podcast is Joe Marchese, founder of Human Ventures and the chairman of Comos Brand Group. Joe has a really interesting resume with a deep history in the ad industry and marketing, and he created his first startup, TrueX, in 2006, which he later sold to Fox Networks for a whopping $200 million. Nice job, bro. And besides for being an expert and thought leader in the attention economy, Joe is also a prominent and socially driven investor through Human Ventures. And Human Ventures focuses on investment strategy on a broad range of essential human needs, from health and wellness to innovations in the workplace, and from how we connect as communities to exploring transformational changes in how and where we spend our time. And Joe's got a whole lot more on his resume that I want to cover. And so let's get into it. Joe, welcome to the podcast. Well, awesome. Good stuff. So before we jump in here, I think it's kind of cool to share. People ask me all the time, Joe, they're like, how do you get your guests on the show? How do you connect with people? And it's really simple. I reached out to you on LinkedIn. I reached out to connect. I said, hey, Joe, we found the Comos Tequila. We're huge fans of the product. I'd love to chat and tell you a little bit more about my show and learn about your journey. You and I had a chat, and that's what leads us here today.
Yeah, no, it was a great outreach. I will say that you did pique my interest by pointing out that you'd gotten Comos Tequila and like the product. I get a lot of cold outreach on LinkedIn, and that was
I appreciate it. And we're going to get to the Comos story in a little bit, but I need to fangirl for a moment on the tequila, which if anybody's watching this on the video replay, it's behind, is that your left shoulder, I guess, at this point? Or is that it's your left shoulder over there. And the Rosada Reposada, which is the pink bottle there. So aside from being the quality being incredible, the bottles are fantastic. And we're actually turning ours into a planter, into a vase. I broke my wife's vase the other day, and I'm like, I got one. We're good.
They are designed to be kept. That's a part of the point. With the
and you could use them for pretty much anything you want. I mean, it's a beautiful vessel, and we'll get to that in a minute. And we'll link everybody up because you got to try this stuff. So I know you got a ton of interesting assessments and point of views on the attention economy, tequila, and everything in between. But I think it's important that we hit the rewind button and dig into your story. Is it true that your first job you were Chucky at Chuck E. Cheese?
That was not my first job, but it was the first time I worked at a mouse-based company. I was a system manager many years later. I had a mouse on my check after Disney bought a large chunk of Fox, even though I never had worked at the company. So I seem to have a recurring theme somewhere in my career that I have a trouble with mouse-based authority. But I was actually the mouse. I remember I went to go work at Chuck E. Cheese because it was newly opening, and I was 16, and I realized I could become an assistant manager because there wouldn't be anyone there with tenure because it was new. So I worked my way into it. But being the assistant manager means that you fill in.
Yeah.
And you're Chucky. Charles Entertainment Cheese.
The formal name, the legal name. The DBA is Chuck E. Cheese. So I can't believe I've never asked this question in 270 episodes. What is the greatest lesson that you've learned while in costume as Chuck E. Cheese?
I will say that it's actually, you see the people in the costumes, and they make the big hand movements, big gestures, and it just comes so naturally once you're inside the costume. You just start talking with your hands as if you've been doing it forever. I will say the most horrifying moment was I wasn't in the customer at the time, but someone was running around at Chucky E. Cheese and they tripped and the head fell off and rolled.
Horrifying.
And the children had a bit of a we comped a lot of meals that
lots
day.
of free pizzas there. So okay, so let's we digress, but we also progress with this show. What was really that first job where you started to feel those tingling feelings around entrepreneurship and business? Were you doing the old paperboy route? Were you selling candy door to door? Where was it where you kind of had that first spark?
I mean, yeah, the paperboy, like, I don't know, in school, I don't know if you ever had this, but you would go sell wrapping paper during the holidays. So you go door to door, ring the doorbell, sell wrapping paper, and like there's a competition for who could sell the most. And I was always going to try to get there. Won a couple of years. It was, sold candy at school. I'd buy like a big bag of candy and then, sell for a quarter. So I guess I always was looking at like, go back to like doing garage sales at my house. And like, I always wanted to negotiate like what I was going to sell at the garage sale.
I remember early negotiations, right? I mean, that's a skill, right? And not just the art and skill of negotiating, but having the confidence to be able to tell somebody, no, that's not, that's too low, right? That's a hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was so young that I was like, I'd be like, oh, hold on, I'll be right back. And I'd just change every 5 seconds. I'd be changing the price on it, like just because I thought I knew what I was doing back then. But no, I think it's always been like that. For me.
Let's fast forward a little bit. And to my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong here, keep me honest, I think it was only about 3 or 4 years into your career before you launched your first company, Truex. Did you always know that you wanted to start a company? Let's kind of break that down a little bit.
Well, yes and no. I mean, so really, while I was in college, I put my schedule on 2 days a week starting in sophomore year and then worked full time the other 3 days. And that was really where I got my start. It was at TMP Worldwide, which was then the parent company,
TMP,
Monster.com. It bought Monster. I worked in this bridge division that was like trying to utilize Monsters and the web to do executive recruiting. And so it was kind of in between the two. So I really kind of got used to and had a front row seat to watching the web eat a larger company. TMP Worldwide had bought Monster, but after long, Monster was the much bigger company. And I was in a bridge spot in between. So that was very interesting. Mm-hmm. Did that for years. Then started to go to grad school, thinking, okay, the internet had just collapsed and maybe it was time to just go take some time at school. But then realized grad school was just the exact same stuff I'd done in undergrad because I'd had a business degree and I was just racking up tens of thousands of dollars in debt I couldn't afford. So dropped out of grad school and went, we actually, it was my friend and I was bartending in Boston and the furthest place on a map from Boston was San Diego. So
let's go to the polar opposite location where we are right now.
Literally and figuratively in terms of lifestyle, where it is on a map, everything. And so when I'd gotten down there, I thought I was going to be a bartender.
And you had long flowing locks then, right? Like you're
but
just.
Yeah, I did have hair at the time. That's how I met my wife in San Diego. The person who cut my hair was the roommate to my now wife 14 years later, 15 years later. So that did happen. But I thought I was going to bartend. Turns out in San Diego, no one quits their bartending job. So there's not new bartending jobs opening up. It's just such a perfect life, which I'm lucky because I'd probably still be doing that today. Surfing and then 70 to 74 and sunny every day, and working the evening. But yeah, then I did some consulting for a little while. I was lucky enough to work with a company called Overture, which was Yahoo search marketing. They were trying to figure out like what was going on with Google, and I spent some time there. And that was where I kind of got the bug to say, like, if everything's different, there's no one's been an expert for kind of like the assistant manager Chucky E. Cheese thing. No one had been doing digital marketing for 10 years because it hadn't
kind of like where we are with Web3 right now.
So you could be the expert. Yeah. Yep.
But it seems like you this whole obsession with the attention economy started pretty early on. What was it like working at Bainbridge and exposed you to that? Is that where it really started to kick in?
No, it really started back at Monster. I mean, look, you know what job boards are? Job boards are marketing and trying to move around human capital, right? Jumping from one business to another, you're marketing the position, the company. this idea of human capital moving around and being the most important resource for every company. Like people think about branding as I need to build a brand so I can sell a product, but you need to build a company's brand to attract talent and money and capital in it. And like that is kind of the core of this idea of like attention being kind of the beginning.
Interesting. Were you ever, I have to be careful how I phrase this, were you ever scared to go out on your own and create a company, or was that always the chosen path? And it's interesting because I think about when I launched my own company, NHP Talent Group, 6 years ago, it was almost like a calling. It was almost like I was drawn to this, like a moth to a flame. I was done working after 20 years, done working for other people. And I felt the calling that I needed to create something and be my own boss and do it. And it wasn't like I was scared. I was more just excited and like, all right, let's go for this. Right. Was there any of that kind of like trepidatious feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always, even these days when I'm on, I've either helped start or invested in around dozens and dozens, of companies. It's always like you always wonder if you're just being just naive enough. I mean, it's certainly back then. I didn't know what I didn't know, and that's that. I think you almost need to do that in order to think you can start a company and like change the world. I mean, I think that there's one book that explains all entrepreneurism, and it's all anyone needs to read. It's a book called Stone Soup. It's a children's fable where they tell it in a lot of different cultures, but an old let's just say in one telling of it, a man walks into a town and says he's going to teach the town to make soup from a stone. And everyone laughs, and then spends a whole ton of time finding the perfect stone and then building the perfect fire. And then finally someone pokes their head out and it's like, can you really make soup from a stone? He's like, yes, but it'd be better if I had some carrots. And the guy's like, well, I have some carrots hidden. And then someone does it with potatoes and show you that. And at the end, the moral of the story for children is that when everyone works together, everybody eats, right? But like for an entrepreneur, like that guy couldn't make soup from a stone, but what he could do is create a vision that everyone wanted to contribute to, right? And that's, like, if you can create a vision that everyone wants to contribute to and say, this is going to be worthwhile for your limited time and resources, for your precious resources, commit it to this, and I will take us here, right? And so, and there's a thin line between, doing that because you truly believe and doing that because, you're projecting, right? And that's what I always look for in founders.
I love that perspective. I'm going to make sure I find that book for my kids, and I'm teaching them. I mean, it's pretty interesting too. My 11-year-old daughter, I think she has an entrepreneurial spirit. She's been involved in the Web3 journey. She minted her first NFTs. I take her with me. I want her to see what daddy does for a living. It's kind of hard to explain recruiting, but it's a lot easier to explain my Web3 stuff that I do with her. So I love it. So we're almost done with the biographical portion, but I'm curious about this. So Truex was around for almost 10 years before Fox acquired it for 200 mil, as I said. And I believe you stepped away for a couple of years, 2011, 2013, to work as the SVP over at Fuse Network. Can you break down those years and what was that like returning, coming back and selling it?
Yeah. So what became Truex had, started as this idea of people were publishers. It was the MySpace days, right? Really Facebook, when you still have profile pages. And it was this idea of if people are publishers, why aren't they getting rewarded from advertising? So could we have self-choice advertising? Could we have, people get value in exchange, earn charity points, get farm bill cash, like do all the things that would get people to opt into advertising. So that was part of it. There was a time when it got to a point where, we brought in an outside CEO. I wasn't interested in kind of being there for the phase that the company was entering at that point. And I had this opportunity to go be basically the CMO and head of digital for a television network, Fuse, which was owned by Madison Square Garden Company, which gave me two things that were invaluable. It was about 2 years of getting my PhD in television. I knew how retrans would work. Everyone in advertising and tech throws stones at TV, but they don't know how it actually works. How does a 30-second rating work? Like why? And I just learned it was just such an interesting 2 years. And the music business, obviously, this was kind of where TV met music, right? As a very small player, like how it fit into the cable bundle. And so that became, absolutely invaluable. And so after those 2 years, taking all that knowledge of how television really worked rather than being an outsider, And applying that to all the underlying technology that Truex had developed for years is actually what became that big success.
Interesting story. Was that when they built the that Fuse studio right across from the garden, right on 7th over there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was interesting. And where's Fuse at these days?
Oh. I don't know. I mean, I think it had sold to Jennifer Lopez. I think at some point it had sold to. It's gone independent. I don't think it's not with MSG anymore.
Hey there, fellow podcast listeners. I'm Kevin Logan Jr., host of the Immutable Mindset podcast. If you're fascinated by Web3, blockchain, and disruptive technology, then you won't want to miss a show. Join me and co-host Adam Posner as we introduce you to an incredible lineup of successful entrepreneurs, builders, and industry veterans who share their insider knowledge, unique perspectives, and personal stories that will leave you inspired and craving more. Like Mike Isogawa, the CEO of Webacy, who shares her journey from being a Cirque du Soleil performer to a cybersecurity pioneer. Or Dave Schwed, COO of Halborn, who discusses the future of digital asset security and how the future of assets will be tokenized. We also break down complex topics into digestible bits, perfect for both experts and newcomers to the world of Web3. So if you're ready to stay ahead of the curve, subscribe to the Immutable Mindset podcast now, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
So let's take it to 2015. Truex gets sold in a deal where you're still going to be heading operations. This is also the year that you launch Human Ventures, correct? Let's talk about that inspiration and story, because there's gold in here.
Yeah. Well, I think so for Human, the inspiration was really New York City is such a unique place. Like it didn't have a center of gravity the way, San Francisco tech is a center of gravity, and Hollywood, entertainment is a center of gravity. But what New York has is diversity of industry, diversity of kind of people, and that's always what's made it as strong as it is. But it wasn't exactly as hot in the tech area. But a very close friend of mine, someone I admire a lot, Heather Hartnett, had already been doing investing in the impact side, and we'd been building both a relationship and a thesis over the idea that if we could put humans first in New York and like try to take advantage of all the things that make New York great in terms of the types of industries that are here. It's capital for fashion and finance and media, and so like there is just a lot of energy and resource here. And so when I sold the company to 21st Century Fox, I took a good amount of the proceeds from that sale, and it was Heather's first backer to start.
And for anyone who's not aware, what's the business model? What do you guys invest in? What are the type of founders that you work with?
So Human Ventures, so the very first, what I backed in the very, very beginning days was a startup studio where founders would come and we'd work with them. We'd give them resources. We'd help them
for equity
network, get to a seed round, and then
like a shared resource equity model.
Yes, exactly. And then since then, we've launched 2 funds, which are typical venture funds, which still invest early stage, so pre-seed, seed, maybe up to an A round, but kind of still sitting with the studio side by side. So we're able to build if we come across a founder that wants to build in an area that we're excited about, but much more typically. So of the portfolio of 70 something companies now, I'd say only 5 or 6 are really builds for us.
And what's that common thread, that ethos that all of the founders and companies have?
So the balance like, again, why we called it Human, Heather and I had a code. If we sent an email to the other person, said this person's a good human, you had to take the meeting.
It was worth taking a meeting. Cool. Yeah.
And that's kind of where Human Ventures came. We were actually surprised that it hadn't been like that, this idea that humans, tech for so long has been like, can we reduce the need for humans? They're so expensive. Or can we do all of this with just, a garage and a computer and I think that we had believed early on that, what Heather refers to as the human needs economy is a massive business, like healthcare, future of work, how people are going to connect in the real world.
There's a great kind of quick point here. I mean, I'm curious. I mean, if one quick look at LinkedIn and we look at ChatGPT, we look at AI, machine learning. Are the robots going to take over all of our jobs, or to your point, what you're saying is like we still need freaking humans to do this thing?
Well, I will say I have never been as optimistic and scared at the same time as I am right now on the AI side of things. I mean, I am so optimistic that workflows are going to get so much more efficient. But I believe that will lead to an abundance in the economy. But will that abundance be able to be properly distributed to people? Like we're going to have to start valuing things what I call the purpose economy, like things that aren't counted in GDP, but we know are good for society, like elder care, child care, like the volunteerism. I mean, there's just we're going to have to figure that out, because right now it doesn't. It should be scary.
I think also it's a very interesting point here, and I want to go down this rabbit hole a little bit. I think it's time for us to reassess the metrics that we're using as indicators. And you hit the nail on the head before. The aging, boomers. I look at my parents, the retirees that are going to skyrocket. The infrastructure of the healthcare system, elder care. I mean, this is real shit. This is scary. So, how do we look to use this new technology to, in any way whatsoever, like hire, build, train the younger generation who's going to take care of that older retiring generation? Fascinating.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, like, you could think of it could be second order effect, meaning we don't need. It's not that AI will help us do some of those things, like childcare and elder care and volunteers, but AI could free us up so we don't need to do a bunch of monotonous tasks at work. Which means if your work hours compress to this, now in your free time, do the things that make you uniquely human. Hence, why. We kind of like our name.
Just for a fun question here, I assume you're playing around with ChatGPT 4 a little bit on your own. Any kind of one of those like aha fun moments that you've kind of figured out?
I don't know if I figured anything out that's unique beyond everything you see out there, people experimenting with it and testing out. I do think it's a great writing partner. Like it's like you bounce ideas and get things polished. I do think that like kind of creating original ideas. I mean, look, all creativity is recombining things. Like this is why I think attention is the most important resource. Is like everything you come up with is just recombining things that you've seen, heard elsewhere, and so that is what it's doing. And it is like when you start to really think about that, it's awe-inspiring.
Right. There's a balance of original, like people say there's no more original ideas. I mean, I disagree. I think that right, it's kind of like the analogy of being a DJ versus a producer, right? The DJs that play other people's music versus the producers, right? But the good ones are the ones that do both, right? And that's where I try to be with my content. So I want to get back on track here. And I have an interesting, I'm very curious because this is right in your wheelhouse. A lot of the companies that you have, I see a lot of them have co-founders. What's kind of your thought on needing a co-founder versus wanting a co-founder versus, hey, some people stay away from having a co-founder?
You look for, I think co-founders, you want to find complements, which it sounds obvious, but I think sometimes you get a lot of people who have the same strengths that end up working together. Also, like we look at co-founders, like we were one of the, I think about a year ago, we announced that Esther Perel was going to become an advisor to ventures, and she's a world-renowned relationship therapist. And why do you have that? And it's because everything's a relationship. Like you and your sales relationships, so your BD relationships, your relationships to your employees, but like maybe co-founder might be paramount amongst all of those in terms of it truly mimics a relationship, and that you have to be able to communicate. You have to have complementary skill sets. You have to there's trust involved in having it. I've co-founded a number of companies, and the thing that makes co-founding relationships most effective is just wild, almost unmitigated trust.
Wild, unmitigated trust. And I'm going to let that sit for a minute because I have a call later with my co-founder, Kevin, to discuss the future of our Web3 company with everything going on right now. And I think we have that in spades. That's the basis for the relationship is trust. I know I can hand him the keys to the car and leave for 3 months and everything will be fine. Mm-hmm. Right? You're not going to scratch it up. Yep. Right? And if you do scratch it up, maybe you'll fix it, or if it's a good yeah, you'll get it fixed there.
Like trust is about like saying I'm not going to be right 100% of the time, but I'll have the right intentions, and then
I'm writing it down. Wild, unmitigated trust. That's for our conversation later, Kevin. Right there, writing it down right there. So I want to talk about the Como
Yeah.
story here because again, I am like brand ambassador. Our crew loves it. We were down in Florida for our Basel, and like we walked for an hour to find the liquor store that had it. Like, and then they gave those are heavy, by the way. Let's just be honest about these. This is a heavy product and a heavy container. They gave us the flimsiest bags, Joe. Like literally, these bags were so flimsy, and I ended up carrying it like the Heisman Trophy. Like walking through Brickell down in Miami, I was carrying it like this, like keeping people out of the way, like dodging people there. How did this product come into your stratosphere?
It was the creator, and so my business partner in that one, Richard Betts, who's the founder. I mean, he is an archetype for a great human. He's incredibly creative. He has just this care of craftsmanship, but is also just universally just this energy that is just a good human. And so, you look at our portfolio, Human Ventures, we have, like I said, now it's over 70 companies. There's only one that's an alcohol company. And you're like, well, you can squint and say, hey, it helps us connect and it's part of the hospitality ecosystem. But really, it was just a great human and master craftsman that we wanted to back. And I had known for years before. And so, and both of us would admit we would have had no idea what it was going to become when we first shook hands. When we have pretty big ambitions, we didn't think it would be this big.
I mean, what is it about the brand that stands out the most in the market?
Well, first the quality of the product. Like, so the focus is on
to be
like having amazing tequila and being luxury tequila. I mean, like that. So then that goes to the next point, which is, I tend to think for every industry, if you find a consensus industry, so everybody and their brother has a tequila, right? Like that seems to be what's coming. So it's a consensus industry that it's a growing industry. We have a counter consensus approach. And we have a counter consensus approach is like, this is not a celebrity tequila. We do have celebrity investors just like everybody else, but we don't.
Right. It's not Clooney
that's not the story,
and
right? The story is, yeah. And I think the next part is that it's just very genuine to what it is. Like, it doesn't look like other tequilas. It's not trying to pretend to be something it's not. It's made in Mexico, in the tequila region. All tequilas have to be. But it has this very kind of global sense to it, which was different than other tequilas. Every other one tries to borrow, a heritage Mexican
take a story
theme, and that's just not like. So we were much more authentic and genuine. And really, again, Richard's the genius behind it, but like been working in Mexico for 20 years, built a mezcal before called Sombra. It's now owned by the Diageo Group, the Davos acquisition. So he grew up on the border of Tucson.
It's authentic.
It's authentic. It just
right. It's an authentic story. It's not a carpetbagger coming into Mexico and all of a sudden you have like a hip hopper or a celebrity out there that's like, oh my God, look, I got a tequila brand, and like they're hawking it all over the place, right? And I'm not the Rock's tequila is not bad. It's a good product. And
no. Look, by the way, and I think the thing that everyone gets wrong with like Clooney and his tequila or Ryan Reynolds and his gin is, and then The Rock, come on, is that like those are the exceptions that prove the rule. No. Those aren't like going to be the new rule, right? Like it's an immense amount of work and an immense amount of hustle that has to go into it.
You can't just slap your name on it and call it a day and make your money.
You can't. Right, and because it's the logistics of the business. It's retail. It's a physical product that has to be in the world, right? And so the worst thing you could do, there's an old saying that like nothing kills a bad product faster than good marketing, right? So if you can reach everybody through your influence, but like the product is only in 20% of states, or like it just
yeah, I mean,
makes it hard.
And again, it comes down to the quality, and the quality is fantastic. Our friends, we're tequila snobs, right? There's nothing. I'm straight up with this. There's nothing worse than bad tequila. Like we all know it, right? Like we all know when you taste something, you're like, you kind of freak the bed on that. I want to shift a little bit, and Como's is great. Everyone check it out. We'll link it up in the comments. Find it at your local retailer, wherever great tequila is sold. It's a good plug. I always want to do a commercial. Founders, this new breed of founders that I'm seeing popping up in the Web3 space, where are you seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly of these founders popping up in the Web3 space?
I don't know that I don't have much insight into the Web3 only because where we focus on physical real world. We also don't have metaverse. We don't have kind of blockchain and virtual here, but we do. Like I have seen kind of companies in our space that have kind of an overlap with the Web3 where they figured out like what their real world applications are, which kind of is how we apply to human. Um, but I don't know that I'd be the expert on kind of founder
Yeah,
archetypes on
and
the
that's fair.
Web3
So let me
side.
kind of spin in another way. What are some of these really cool kind of skill sets, right? Because there's founders and investors as founders and founders and investors there. But what are you seeing kind of these cool Swiss Army skills coming out that are really necessary to succeed as a founder who is going to grow and be an operator within their business?
Yeah. It it is that thing. If you're not going to have a co-founder that's your complement, it's figuring out how to do the thing that you're not comfortable with. Like the founders tend to you want to solve every day. You want to solve some problem every day. You want to move the business forward, and the easiest thing to do are the things you're best at, right? And then other things just kind of fall by the wayside on
Logically.
their own, which is fine if you're in an organization because then the organization, like it's almost like the muscle adjusts or compensates for other weaker muscles, and then everything balances out. But when you're at the top of the organization and you do that, you basically sway the entire direction of the organization. So, like figuring out how to get, I heard someone say it like doing the hard thing is what strategy is. Like it's like um, figuring out how to do that at the top or have a counterbalance and co-founder is just this unbelievable skill set. And I also think the market we're moving into right now, understanding that like every CEO or founder is both the CMO and head of sales too, and head of product too, until such time as which there's a full infrastructure running. So like know that even if you're uncomfortable with that, that's going to be your job, and
Yeah,
figure out how to
that's a hard
balance
one.
it.
Is there a world where technology and philanthropy start to have more of a harmonious relationship? And what needs to happen to really spark that shift? I think this is critical to the human ventures plight.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, part of it is what I talked about before with the purpose economy. Like, how do we value the things that are good for humanity but might not be counted in GDP? The other thing is that we did an investment in a company called Groundswell, which basically takes corporate philanthropy and makes it an employee benefit. And how that works is, corporations are one of the largest donors to nonprofits in the world, but it's very hard, or if not it's very hard for them to give money away to particular causes because
Hmm.
their employee bases have very different priorities, like than the typical white male executives that lead the these giant companies. And even if you're doing something that is very good and liked by 80% of your workforce, there's still 20% who would prefer to give. So what we did was, and this is the kind of the brainchild of Jake Wood, who was the founder of Team Rubicon, a large veteran-led nonprofit
Hmm.
that's been doing amazing work, like retraining
Reskilling.
veterans
Hmm.
to go out and do disaster relief. Yeah, and so his insight was, well, what if large corporates would give money to their employees to then give away through basically like 401ks for good, let's call it, like it almost is like Venmo for nonprofits. So the employers give the money to the employees get to give it away.
Hmm.
Matching programs are made more efficient, and that kind of to use a kind of a Web3 word, even though it's not built on the blockchain side, it does decentralize giving. So rather than Google giving to the Boys and Girls Club, like Adam
Right.
would give to the local Boys and Girls Club
It's
in
more
Topeka,
actionable.
right? And it would it makes giving more efficient. It gets the dollars out from the corporates to the places that need it,
It's a
and
win-win.
empowers employees. So like that
Yeah,
to
that's a
me is
great
a
example.
good
It's a
example.
win-win. So let's bring it home here. And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, as someone who's built companies and managed people, the root of this show 4 years ago is still in hiring and recruiting and building teams. So what is Joe's go-to interview question to really get to the heart? Because there's always this kind of debate of hire for character, train for skill, right? That kind of thing, which we could talk about later. I'm not on board with that 100%. But how do you you know listen, by the time someone gets to you for any interview, they're probably at a pretty relatively high level that you're interviewing them for. How do you ascertain if they are a good human? Like what are those kind of questions? Yeah, we're going there.
So I guess, yeah. So the things I look for. well, let me start with, I think almost everybody could be a great fit for an organization because they have a skill. You just have to figure out which skill that is and how it is. And then you have to look for red flags. And the biggest red flags is, the two things that you want to avoid, because it's the opposite of trust, is insecurity. At any level, I'm talking senior executive all the way down, because it means people want to be like mine, and they need to prove their worth, and it gets pretty hard if that's their driving factor. And then the other one is kind of this I look for sentences that kind of give away a bit of a victim mentality, which is, and that is like, it always rains when I want to go out. And it's like, well, no, that statistically it does not do that. But you're framing the world through that. Right? So like looking for people like that kind of like that. Those are my red flags. Beyond that, I think everybody could be of an asset in one way or another because they have a unique skill set, and kind of diversity of views is what kind of creates strength in an organization.
Do you have a go-to interview question? Do you have like Joe's top secret go-to interview question? You got to have a patented signature question, man. Everyone has a signature question.
I like asking just very simple questions to see. I look for a little mental plasticity and like kind of like just like that has nothing to do with the role. I mean, I did ask a very fun question of, he's now the CFO of Almost, by the time he was just coming in to be an analyst at Human Ventures. And I just said, well, what's the first thing you do if you want to start a tequila company? Now, this person knew nothing about tequila, and neither did I at the time. And it's just like, just watching someone think through, well, I guess first I'd have to find out how, where it's going. And then I guess I need to name,
process.
Kind of an interesting.
Yeah, I think the critical thing here. So let's bring it home here. And this show is my masterclass. I get to interview incredible business leaders like yourself. Joe, what's the single greatest piece of advice that you've ever received that you take action on daily? Could be a mantra when you wake up, you stretch your arms to get out of bed, and you say this to yourself in your head or out loud.
I mean, I guess it's kind of back to the other side of that. The opposite of the victim mentality where like everything's going to be bad. Like, yeah, if you ever read the Tao of Pooh, like Winnie the Pooh, and like there's this part where it kind of teaches Taoism through the story of Winnie the Pooh and like all the characters. It's a great audiobook to listen to. I highly recommend it because it's kind of fun to listen to. But Pegula has this kind of saying, it's like when he gets everybody thinks, what wonderful things are going to happen to me today, right? And like this idea of like starting every day with being excited for the day, no matter what's going on. I can't say I take that all the time. I have some stress or anxiety or oh man, there's just too much and I'm not keeping up as everyone else. But whenever I can, as often as possible, be excited for what's next.
I love it, man. And last but not least, you look back on your life and your career, and listen, it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows, and we didn't go too deep into that part of it. I felt positive this morning. Let's keep it on the positive. But there were those times when you really had to dig down deep inside and harness that inner tenacity to drive you forward. And on the flip side of it, you're sitting here, great view coming down Lower Manhattan, building an incredible company that does good for the world, hiring, building, and companies of good people, and you want to show gratitude. Joe, what is your compass in life? What keeps you centered? What is your North Star?
I think it's one. It's my 15-year-old Puggle that is my wife and I joke she's our heart outside our body, but like it just come home. Dogs just in general, man, they are happiness. There's a saying like we don't deserve them. They're too good. But I think the work in nonprofit and storytelling and like this idea of like how stories can change the world is and how everything is kind of stories and so I think that's where it comes from. I just like being helpful to people and I like watching my network connect with each other and then not needing me to be the one making the connection. So I think that is.
I love it, man. And Joe, I want to thank you so much for your time and sharing your wisdom with everybody. I want everyone to check out human.bc. Where else could folks find you? Where could they connect with you? Where could they learn more?
I'm on Twitter and just at Joe Marchese or on LinkedIn.
Find, connect, check out Comos. It's the goods, people. Joe, I want to thank you so much for joining me. I want to thank everybody for listening. If you like this show, sharing means caring. Leave a review, a rating. It goes a long way. Remember, you can find out everything at thepodcast.com. past episodes, subscribe, link, and share. Remember, take care of each other, look out for one another, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.